Section 6 of A Daughter of the Sioux. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Ken Campbell. A Daughter of the Sioux by General Charles King. Chapter 6. First Sight of the Foe. Ray's gallant half-hundred, as has been said, took the route for the north at break of day. Before them spread the open prairie, apparently level and unbroken, for full 5 miles to the front and either flank, the distant slopes and ridges bounding the level expanse growing more distinct with every moment, and presently lighting up in exulting radiance in response to the rosy blushes of the eastward sky. Scorning the dusty stage road, the troop commander pointed to a distant height just visible against the northward horizon, bade the leading guide march straight on that, then gave the order "right by twos," that he might the more readily note the gait and condition of every horse, and the bearing and equipment of his rider. There was still time to weed out the weaklings of either class, should any such there be. Riding slowly along the left flank, one after another, he carefully scanned every man and mount in his little detachment, then, at quicker pace, passed around to the eastward side of the column, and as carefully studied them from that point of view. The light of the quiet satisfaction shone in his fine dark eyes as he finished, for, next to his wife and children, that the troop was Ray's supreme delight. The preliminary look-over by lantern light had been all sufficient. This later inspection on the move revealed not a steed amiss, not an item of equipment either misplaced or lacking. Steady as planets, barring the irrepressible tendency of some young, high-spirited horse to dance a bit until quieted by the monotony of the succeeding miles. At quick, light-hoofed walk, the sorrels tripped easily along in precise yet companionable couples. 1 yard from head to crop, said the drill book of the day, and but for that the riders might have dropped their reins upon the pommel as practically unnecessary. But for the first hour or so at least, the tendency toward the rear of the column was ever to crowd upon the file leaders, a proceeding resented not infrequently in less disciplined commands than Ray's by well-delivered kicks, or at least such signs of equine disapprobation as switching tail or set-back ears. But Ray's troop horses moved like so many machines, so constant and systematic has been their drill, and Ray's men rode in the perfection of uniform, so far as armament and equipment were concerned. Each greatcoat, precisely rolled, was strapped with its encircled poncho at the pommel. Each blanket, as snugly packed, with the sidelines festooned upon the top, was strapped at the cantle. Lariat and picket pin, coiled and secure, hung from the near side of the pommel. The canteen, suspended from its snap-hook, hung off the side. Saddle-bags with extra horseshoes, nails, socks, underwear, brushes, and comb, extra packages of carbine and revolver cartridges, and minor impedimenta, equally distributed as to weight, swung from the cantle and underneath the blanket roll. From the broad black leather carbine sling over each trooper's left shoulder, the hard-shooting brown-barreled little Springfield hung suspended, its muzzle thrust, as was the fashion of the day, into the crude socket imposed so long upon our frontier fighters by officials who had never seen the West, save, as did a certain writer of renown, from a car window, thereby limiting their horizon. Ray despised that socket as he did the shoemaker bit, but believed, with President Grant, that the best means to end obnoxious laws was their rigorous enforcement. Each man's revolver, a trusty brown Colt, hung in its holster at the right hip. Each man was girt with ammunition belt of webbing, the device of an old-time Yankee cavalryman that had been copied round the world, the dull-hued copper cartridges bristling from every loop. Each man wore, as was prescribed, the heavy, cumbrous cavalry boot of the day and generation, but had stowed in his saddle-bags light moccasins and leggings, with which to replace them when, farther afield, their clear-headed commander should give the word. Each man, too, wore the gauntlets of Indian tan buckskin, special pattern that Ray had been permitted to use experimentally. Each man was clad in dark blue flannel shirt and blouse, the latter soon probably to be stored with the big weighty boots in Truscott's saddle-room at Beecher, with probably, too, many of the light blue riding breeches, saddle-pieced with canvas, the uniform at the start destined, in the case of veteran troopers, at least to be shed in favor of the brown duck hunting trousers, or even, among certain extremists, fringed, beaded, and embroidered buckskin, than which the present chronicler knows no more uncomfortable garb when soaked by pelting rains or immersion in some icy mountain stream. Even the brown campaign hats, uniformly creased, as the 50 left the ford, would soon be knocked out of all semblance to the prescribed shape, and made at once comfortable and serviceable. Add to these items the well-fitted haversack and battered tin-quart cup, for on a forced march of 2 or 3 days Captain Ray would have no pack-mules, and the personal equipment of his men was complete. As for the mounts, each sorrel tripped easily along under the sextuple folds of the saddle-blanket and the black-skin McClellan saddle-tree, with its broad horsehair cincha and hooded wooden stirrups, minus the useless skirts and sweat-leathers. Neither breast-strap, cupper, nor martingale hampered the free movements of the sturdy, stocky little weight-carriers. The black single-rein curb bridle, fastened as to the throat-latch by a light buckle, was slipped over the headstall of the so-called watering bridle, whose toggled and detachable snaffle bit was generally toted from start to finish of a field scout in the saddle-bags, a twist of the flexible lariat, Indian fashion, between the complacent jaws of his pet, being the troop's ready substitute. Add to this that full, free, and unmutilated, in glossy waves, the beautiful manes and tails tossed in the upland breeze, for the heresies of algomania never took root in the American cavalry, and you have Ray's famous troop as it looked, fresh started from old Fort Frayne this glorious autumn morning of the 1880s, and with a nod of approbation, and it couldn't be better, sergeant, to his devoted right-hand man, the veteran senior non-commissioned officer of the troop. Ray rang out of the command, "At ease," and placed himself beside the silent young lieutenant at the head of column. As has been said, Ray's senior subaltern was on detached service. His junior, Mr. Clayton, had joined but the year before, and this threw Mr. Field in command of the leading platoon, and to the side of the leading guide. Now, as the senior officer took the head of the column and Mr. Clayton fell back to the rear, the silence of the first mile of march was broken, and, though sitting erect in saddle and forbidden to lounge or slouch, the troop began its morning interchange of chaff and comment. Every mother's son of them rejoiced to be once more afield with a chance of stirring work ahead. "It's time to throw out our advance, Field," said Ray in kindly cordial tone, as he scanned the low divide still some miles ahead and reined in beside the stern-faced young soldier. "Send Sergeant Scott forward with 3 men, and the same number on each flank. Corporals in charge." He had more than liked Webb's adjutant. He had been his staunchest friend and supporter among the troop and company commanders, and was eager to befriend him now. He had expressed no wish to have him sent on the hurried move, but well he knew the post commander's reason and approved his course. Still, now that Field was being removed, for the time at least, from the possibility of entangling alliance that might prove disastrous in every way in his power, Ray meant to show the mortified, indeed sorely angered officer, that his personal regard for him had suffered no change whatsoever. If he could succeed in winning Field's confidence, it might well be that he could bring him to see that there were good and sufficient grounds for the post commander's action, that for Field's own good, in fact, it was a most desirable move. The soul of loyalty and square dealing himself, Ray had never for a moment dreamed that anything other than a foolish escapade had occurred. A ride by moonlight, perhaps, demanded of her devotee by a thoughtless, thoroughbred coquette, whose influence over the young fellow was beginning to mar his usefulness, if not indeed his future prospects. Just what to think of Nanette Flower, Ray really did not know. Marion, his beloved better half, was his unquestioned authority in all such matters, and it was an uncommon tenet of that young matron never to condemn until she had cause. Instinctively she